Once upon a time, in the Valley of Echoes, a young traveler sought the meaning of courage. The mountains answered in whispers, and the wind carried his name.
Alright, Flix Fam, real talk. Today's review is personal because Legend is the adventure movie of my childhood. And the best way I can describe this movie to you is, you know when you're reading your kid a bedtime story and you start to get comfortable. You're holding your book up, your eyes start to get heavy, and the book slips out your hand and slaps you right in the face. That's Legend. It's the kind of movie people sleep on because it's not a modern fantasy. And while I believe the theatrical version fails in trying to spoon feed you a story, the director's cut wants to show you exactly how they get down in this type of story. When the dreamy storybook vibes slowly turn into a nightmare, like the fairy tales of olden time are trying to remind you that they're a warning. And this movie has two of my favorite practical effects of all time. Darkness, played by the great Tim Curry. He's not just a villain, he's an entire presence. And Meg Mucklebones, played by a film staple, Robert Picardo. And a creature seen so nasty and creative that it horrified a generation. So what I'm doing today is pretty simple. I'm going to tell you what Legend gets absolutely right, visually and thematically, and where the theatrical release stumbled a little bit, but also why it still deserves that cult classic respect. And if you've never seen this, after this review, I'm hoping you can see why this bedtime story needs to slap you in the face, in the best way possible, of course. My name is Jay. Grab your popcorn, your snacks, and your drink, and let's get back to the flicks.
Let's take a trip down memory lane. So hop in the whip, let's ride the wave. Destination set where classics were born. So kick up your feet and grab the popcorn. Blockbuster movies that swept the nation. Hit the like, subscribe, and notification.
The Lord of Darkness wants eternal night, so he sends his minions to kill the last two unicorns, which are the beacons of light, because as long as the unicorns are alive, the light and the goodness can't fully die. Jack knows the unicorns are sacred, but his love for Princess Lily allows him to break the rules. She reaches out to touch one, and that tiny moment allows the goblins to strike. They poison the unicorn, cut off his horn, and that act alone plunges the world into winter. Jack teams up with some forest allies in an attempt to save the unicorn and retrieve the other horn. Lily learns that she was used as bait and is captured by darkness. He confesses his love to her and tries to seduce her with gifts. Jack and the crew fight their way to the castle and discover that the key to beating darkness is the daylight. Using a concept he learned from Lily, he uses reflective surfaces to channel the daylight into darkness. In the final confrontation, Jack defeats darkness, the unicorn is saved, and the horn is returned to the fallen unicorn. Jack's love breaks Lily from a spell, and along with the daylight, peace is returned to the world. Legend drops us into a fairy tale world where innocence and nature feel protected, until one wrong choice invites darkness into everything. A forest boy named Jack, trying to stop the Lord of Darkness from plunging the world into eternal night by killing the last unicorns, who are the beacons of everything pure and the light in the world, while the princess he loves gets used as bait and nearly tempted to join the darkness. This is the type of movie that doesn't ease us into the rules and lore dumps. It just says, here's the forest, here's the magic. Don't touch anything you're not supposed to touch. And that's the vibe of those classic fairy tales. Even though they can be very simple on the surface, what lies beneath can be terrifying. And the big thing I noticed with Legend, it's not just an adventure movie the way the modern movies do it. It's more like a visual dream where the scenes seem like chapters in a storybook. You're supposed to feel it before you really understand what's going on. So honestly, if you're the type that needs an airtight logic every 10 seconds, I'm warning you now, this movie might frustrate you. But if you like the atmosphere, the fog, the candle lights, the practical effects, this movie is like a full course meal. We meet Jack, and I shouldn't even have to tell you who this character is played by. He's a forest boy who moves like he belongs to the woods. And Princess Lily, curious in the most dangerous of ways, like she's always one step from crossing the line. For those of us who have seen this movie on television, and that sometimes you feel like you're missing a scene because the theatrical version plays such a different context than the director's cut. In one, Lily seems like a sweet, innocent girl who just doesn't know any better. And in the latter, she seems like an entitled princess who's never been told no and never been shown the consequences of her actions. I love the characters' archetypes here because they're clear and readable. Jack is the pure hero. He's basically the human personification of the forest. And Lily is the reason that every fairy tale gets messy. Not because she's evil, because she's curious, bored, and a little reckless. And in these type of stories, curiosity is a loaded weapon. And as a kid, this is one of those bedtime stories where the moral is simple. Your choices matter, and the visuals of this movie are so intense they tattoo the message on your brain. Also, this is one of those movies where the cast is doing minimal with dialogue. The expression, the mood, and the performance, especially when the villains show up and change the entire mood of the film. The opening is all mist, soft lights, and enchanted calm, like the movie is rocking you to sleep on purpose. And people call this part slow, I can get it, but I actually think that the slow opening is the point. This movie is hypnotizing you. It's building a mood so thick you can almost feel it. If the beginning is too loud, you don't feel the shift later. Legend starts like a lullaby, so that when it turns into a nightmare, it feels like somebody flipped your pillow over and the other side is even hotter. This is the part where we should be paying attention to the craft, the way the light hits the trees, the way the fog sits in the frame, and you have those certain hints of shimmer across the snow, and how the camera moves like it's floating. It's dreamy on purpose, like the movie wants us half awake. The film leans into practical effects textures. Fog you can feel, light beams through the trees, the wet leaves, candle smoke, sets that look built and not rendered. And I think that's why so many of us miss this era. Your brain can tell the difference between a world that's practically there and a world that's mostly assembled later. The shadows feel real, the fog behaves like fog, and the lighting has weight to it. This is where I have to give this movie its flowers. Legend is a masterclass in atmosphere. It's the kind of fantasy that's tangible. The movie has frames that feel like paintings, and any wobble the story hits later on, the visuals never stop doing their job. Such a beautiful film. Darkness enters like an elegant nightmare. Heat, shadows, and menace all at once. This is the reason that most people even remember Legend. Tim Curry doesn't just play a villain, he plays a presence. The way he moves is theatrical, but it's not corny. It's like he knows he's the main event, and the practical effects work here is elite. This is the kind of makeup and creature designs that make you sit up like, oh man, this is real. And what's crazy is that even though Darkness is terrifying, he's also charismatic. One of the Flix Fam even put on the poll that Darkness was her first crush. I know that might sound weird, but let's not judge. And it's not just like he's a monster. He shows flaws and vulnerability, and even the ability for love. He's temptation with a voice, and that's what pulls us in every time he's on scene. Jack's quest pulls him into the gross side of fairy tales, the swamps that hide bone-rattling creatures and the legendary Meg Mucklebones. The theatrical version doesn't do this scene any justice, but in the director's cut we get to see the full interaction with old Meg. Meg is not just a random creature. She's like gluttony and pride wrapped up in a horrifying bundle. The setting is gross, the mood is unsettling. Every movement she makes you feel uncomfortable. Characters like Meg are why I believe the generation that was raised on these type of movies have a certain tolerance and love for the nightmare aesthetic. The characters like Darkness, Meg, and others in this movie are what gives this movie teeth that separate it entirely from the dreamy forest aesthetic and let us know that even though this world is so beautiful, it's still dangerous, and it'll eat you alive if you're careless. As the stakes rise, the story starts moving faster, sometimes so fast it feels like the steps are missing between the moments. Some characters' choices feel kind of abrupt, and some transitions feel like you turn 2 pages at once. And that's why you'll hear people call it confusing, because it's not always giving us that connective tissue. Alright, this is where I have to be honest. The theatrical version does this movie no justice. Don't even bother with it. If you've ever watched Legend before and you're like, man, this movie feels kind of disjointed, it's because the theatrical version was trying to keep up with with the pacing at the time, but the director's cut honestly wants to tell the story how it was written. Now for me, you already know that the visuals and the creature work cover up pretty much any sin this movie could ever commit. So I'll emphasize again, skip the theatrical version, watch the director's cut. Depending on the version you saw, the movie's rhythm changes entirely. So if you're in the comments like, nah, that didn't really feel like the way I watch it, I believe you. That's part of the Legend experience. And honestly, that makes this kind of fascinating. It's like the movie has multiple personalities. One leans more dark fairy tale mood piece and the other leans more traditional fantasy adventure. Flix Fam, this is where I want you to chime in the comments. Which version of Legend do you remember the most? At its core, it's a simple myth. Temptation versus innocence. Light versus darkness, and the cost of a selfish moment. That's the classic fairy tale DNA. Even with the peace and chaos, the world is balanced. It's your choices that shift you to either side. And the movie frames darkness more than just a bad guy. He's the voice that says, hey, the rules don't apply to you. It's the temptation in his ego, and sometimes even our innocence, or ignorance for that matter. And that's what makes stories like this last, because behind the beauty and all the ugliness, there's a lesson. So even though the plot might wobble a little bit, the message always sticks to landing. So now that we've stepped into this forgotten fairy tale, the beautiful, the dangerous, and the little cursed, it has images that you don't shake. Darkness is an all-timer. Meg has been burned into people's brains. And the forest itself feels like a character. So here's my verdict. Legend might be flawed, but it's still unforgettable. If you're like me, it's the 80s fantasies that made movies feel like a dream. And Legend is one of those dreams I love revisiting. And I'm not even saying you have to call it perfect to love it. Movies like Legend earn their place through craft and imagination, through the atmosphere that modern movies fail to replicate. So I'm putting Legend under the category of a necessary experience. And if you haven't seen this movie before, I implore you to give the director's cut a chance. Let me know who your favorite character was down in the comments. For me, it has to be Darkness, hands down. And again, if you've enjoyed this review, hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell, and even drop your favorite 80s fantasy in the comment section. Willow, The Labyrinth, Crawl, The Never-Ending Story, all heavy contenders. My name is Jay, and tune in every week as I get back to the flicks.
We're going back to the flicks, rewind the mix. 80s flicks, fairy ties in the Netflix fix. Reliving those days with the little ones amazed in this retro way. Old classics paved the way. Back to the flicks, rewind the mix. 80s flicks, fairy ties in the Netflix fix. Reliving those days with the little ones amazed in this retro way. Old classics paved the way.